Villains are often the most fun aspects of stories, whether they're fun to hate, lovable baddies, or just horrifying in their own right. They are integral to the story. So writing them must be very important, right? Well, if you ask me, yes. And my favorite kind of villain is a likable one, because sometimes you want to find yourself rooting for them. But how do you make them likable? Hello, my name is Doodle, and welcome to my channel. Today I will be trying to answer that very question. If you don't know, on my channel I talk about true crime, paranormal events, and writing, while I play Minecraft in the background. If this sounds like fun, stick around and check out my other videos too. To clarify, these are guidelines, and by no means are they hard and fast rules. Also, this is how to make a villain likable, not necessarily a good or redeemable person or character. Also, there are more ways to make a villain likable without making them sympathetic or even a good person, which is what I would like to try and explore today. Without further ado, let's get into the actual content. There are several ways you can make your villain likable. The first way is by making them right. By making your villains have a valid point on something, like in Avengers Age of Ultron with Ultron or Killmonger in Black Panther, you make the audience start to find themselves agreeing with the villain, and humans like people they agree with. The trick here is to ensure that they remain the villain. If you don't do that, you create a different kind of character, in fact, a different kind of story. When you make your villain secretly the good guy, they are no longer the villain. Now, I'm not saying this is bad. One of my favorite stories of all times, Nimona, is like that. But we're talking about how to make likable villains. So, how do we ensure our villain stays villainous? You can have them set on the mindset that the ends justify the means, like Ultron, who wants to protect humanity, but sees humanity as the greatest threat to themselves. You could also have them be a character like Killmonger, who genuinely has a good goal and wants to avoid violence when they can, but ends up succumbing to violence or a means that they don't necessarily like. A branch off of this is by making the villain have an understandable tiff with the main character or force that drives the story, like Luke from the Percy Jackson series. He has a point about the gods basically abandoning their children, and he has a point with how the gods use their children as pawns. But he goes about his reform, I say in air quotes since you guys can't actually see me, in a way that does not do any good for anyone. He has a point, but his attempt at reform is actually counterproductive. We can sympathize with his want for change, but we can also see that his end goal is not the way to fix the problem. Another way you can make them likable is by making them funny. Think about it. Some of the most iconic villains out there are amusing. Thomas Jefferson from Hamilton is a hilarious character and probably one of, if not the most likable characters in all of the musical, despite being framed as the villain. He's suave and hilarious and always has the best retorts to everything. He's fun to root for, even if you don't agree with him. Another way that you can make your villain likable that I don't quite like is by giving them a tragic backstory. Let me clarify. I only dislike this method because so often it is not done well. When giving a villain a tragic backstory, you have to show it affecting them, not just a one-liner about how they suffered or something of the sort. I myself really struggle with this one, which is maybe why I hate it so much, because I'm really bad at it. You need to show how it affects them. Make us feel bad for them. In She-Ra, we see how Catra's abusive childhood affected her. We see the nightmare she suffers from and the abandonment issues she went through. Most importantly, we see it affect her actions. Now, it also isn't used to discount any of the pain she caused, but it does make us feel bad for her. It makes us understand it, but it doesn't forgive it. I'm not going to get into her character arc because that isn't the point of this video, but if that's something you'd like to hear about, let me know in the comments. Another way to make the villain fun is by making them playful or not 100% a villain. This tends to work better in procedural versions or shows when there's an overarching idea but not really a through plot, like Phineas and Ferb, procedural versions where characters tend to have less of an arc and their characters are more stagnant. It also works better in these forms because they tend to have more lighthearted tones or are intended for children. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb is a great example of this. He's fun and lovable while still being evil. He also works with the good guys sometimes too. He's not entirely evil, and his plans mostly revolve around embarrassing his brother, which is something you shouldn't do, but it's still not like, oh my gosh, he's slaughtering children. He's not actually hurting people, and we can see he genuinely cares about people like his daughter and his arch nemesis, Perry the Platypus. Which leads me to another way to make them likable. Make them love or fight for someone. Make them want to protect someone so much that they don't care what they do to protect them, so long as that person is safe. Probably the most iconic example of this is Mr. Freeze from Batman. He only really fights to try and get things to help his wife Nora with her illness. He doesn't want to be evil or bad or hurt people, but he desperately wants to protect her and ignores any destruction he's doing in the process. Speaking of desperate people, making your villain desperate is another great way to make them likable. Make them have a goal that they have been told or have convinced themselves is the only way. Make them become so tunnel-visioned at getting their goal that they forget about everything else around them. For a time, Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender was a great example of this. Before his character arc, he was so focused on getting his honor back / recapturing the Avatar that he forgot about everything else. He doesn't allow himself to see the pain his actions are causing others, or about the fact that he doesn't need his father's approval to be honorable. One reason why his character arc works, though, is because initially it's set up very early on. He isn't so blinded that he becomes a monster. In the first 2 episodes, he had the chance to slaughter an entire village just to get Aang, but instead he takes the less violent option. This allows his arc to be more realistic and him to be a more likable character. If you are going to write an arc on a character like this, you need to plant those seeds in the beginning, or else it feels random, unless you have that character do a lot of personal growth in the meantime. But I wouldn't really recommend, in my personal opinion, this style works better when you're giving them an arc or something of the sort. It's harder to feel sympathetic for them in the sense of, oh, I feel bad for them, they're fighting for someone they care about, if they're a complete and utter monster. Making them not a total monster is something the style tends to work better for, as it leans towards a more sympathetic character. The final way to make your character likable without getting into morally gray characters or anti-heroes is by just making them insanely successful or just so fun to root for that you can't help yourself, like Scar. Scar's just so fun and evil and conniving. It's like, oh my gosh, it's just fun, right? Another example of this is Azula. She's a beloved villain, also from Avatar: The Last Airbender, because I like that show way too much, but she's so fun to hate. Almost everything always goes her way exactly the way she wants it to, because she's just so good at what she does, and when it doesn't, she's able to quickly change the situation to bend to her favor. This, coupled with her, in my opinion, somewhat humorous coldness, makes her just the perfect character to hate. She's so good at what she does, scary because she is so powerful, and has that air of self-importance that makes her fun. You can tell that she, the character, feels she is entitled to do everything she is doing. There are so many nuances when going into writing a character, and these are by no means rules or comprehensive ways to write a character, just guidelines. Often these guidelines can be combined, like with Zuko having a tragic backstory and being blinded by his goal. But they don't all match. A villain that's fun and happy-go-lucky, always messing with the protagonist, and is generally well put together in that they're able to laugh at their own mistakes, or when their plans are thwarted, may not work so well with a villain that's desperate and unhinged, just so focused on a goal. They could still be deranged, but not in a desperate way. Calm and collected, like... Oh, shoot. Why am I drawing a blank right now? Like Moriarty, that's his name, from Sherlock Holmes. He is insane completely, but he's also so fun because he's almost manic in the way he teases and taunts Sherlock Holmes. On the other hand, I'm reading off the script and improvising as I go. They could still be deranged, but not in a desperate way, in a calm and collected manner. On the other hand, this could work amazingly. A character who is so driven by their want or need to mess with the protagonist, for example, like the Joker, might work really well. The point I'm trying to get at is these can be used in all kinds of combinations to make interesting and complex, likable characters, but you also need to take into consideration the tone of your story, the theme and personality of the character, and what exactly you want to go for in regards to the message of your story or even just of your character. Anyway, in the end, I'm just a stranger on the internet, so if this isn't how you want to write a character, you do you. These are guidelines I would recommend a new writer to use to help them find their writing voice, and if that doesn't help you, just ignore me. They helped me, but that doesn't mean they'll help you. What do you think? Are these good ways to write likable villains? Did I forget to add something you think I should? Are there other kinds of villains or other characters that you want me to cover in the future? Who are your favorite villains? Let me know all of this in the comments below. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing so I know what kind of content I should keep making. Last of all, have an amazing day, or evening, or whatever depending on when you're watching this. Thank you so much for watching. This is Doodle signing out.